it's just really exciting to see that we're currently planting approximately 30 million trees every month
Wow.
across all of these sites, or countries
That is
rather.
absolutely incredible. Hello, this is Alex from Tentsile, and I'm here with Daniel Hartz from Eden Reforestation Project, one of our long-standing partners for our reforestation work around the world. We work with 2 reforestation projects, and Eden Reforestation Projects is one of our longest standing partners. They plant indigenous species, not just monocultures, but a mix of species, and they have about an 80% survival rate. So welcome, Daniel. Thanks for agreeing to do this piece with us.
Well, thank you very much for having us on the show.
Maybe you can give us a little bit of background on the reason behind Eden being founded, and you know, how, why, and when, basically.
Yeah, of course. So the Eden Reforestation Project started about 16 years ago in Ethiopia, actually, and that's where Dr. Stephen Fitch, who I'll just call Steve as he's known at Eden, Steve was doing some more traditional style nonprofit work, you know, building schools, wells, doing medical facilities, etc. And he was just extremely good at it. Very, I suppose, effective, efficient, and he kind of got some attention from the president of southern Ethiopia at the time, who reached out to Steve and said that there is a large reforestation project in the south of Ethiopia which failed, and it was being worked on by a well-known and large environmental nonprofit. And so Steve, whose personality is very much let's just go for it, even though he knew very little about reforestation or planting trees at the time, went there, and his approach was different than other environmental organizations, because his focus was first and foremost on the people of the region. And so he started looking at what the people there were doing, why they were struggling, and he just started talking to them and asking a lot of questions. And he basically realized that actually the deforestation problems there had very little to do with the environment per se. That was actually a symptom of extreme poverty. And that's what he discovered, which is that extreme poverty essentially forces people to cut trees down. What happens with some organizations is what they do is they bring in volunteers, for instance, from the US to go to a country. And just as an example, I mean, it can be from any country, but they bring in volunteers who then plant the trees there and then leave. But this doesn't actually solve the root issue, no pun intended, which is the poverty alleviation. Because like you say, people cut trees down for survival, whether it's charcoal or other types of fuel, or building structures. There's a wide variety of reasons why people cut trees down. And what Steve discovered was by actually hiring the local community members there in areas of extreme poverty, 2 things happen. Number one, we hire people, we pay them a salary, which is sometimes the first time they're ever receiving cash as a payment. And so we've cut out that, we've broken the poverty cycle, meaning they're actually receiving money. They no longer need to cut trees down. That's sort of our defensive play. And then the job that we're providing them or asking them to do is to plant trees.
Daniel, you've been involved with Eden for, you know, a few years now as well. So you know the fabric and the kind of projects that are happening. Do you have a favorite at the moment that's kind of shouting out, that kind of warms your heart and is a real success story that you'd like to tell everyone about?
This is going to be a little bit of a cop-out for this answer, but they're all great in their own ways. I suppose the one that I'm most excited about right now specifically is probably the fact that we're working in Brazil, just because everyone knows about the Amazon. Interestingly enough, we're not actually in the Amazon. We're in a different region, which is, it's spelled Cerrado, but it's pronounced Cerrado. And the Cerrado region is the second largest biome in Brazil after the Amazon, and it's a hugely important environmental region for Brazil, because it's basically the sponge, so to speak, of Brazil. It's where all of the water ends up gathering. And one of the biggest challenges with cutting trees down is that it breaks the water cycle. Rain stops flowing, rain stops dropping, rivers stop flowing. It messes up everything with water. And once you plant trees and bring trees back, all of it, the water cycle is restored. So it's a hugely important project for us. And I think for a lot of our partners, Brazil has been, top of mind for a very long time. But we also work, we just recently opened up the Philippines as well. We started planting in a couple of spots on Mindanao in the Philippines. But we're also in Madagascar, Mozambique, Kenya, we're in Honduras, Haiti, Nepal, and Indonesia. And each one of these places has a very rich biodiversity, lots of forest cover, or at least they did. And so it's just really exciting to see that we're currently planting approximately 30 million trees every month across all of these sites, or countries rather.
Absolutely incredible. My next question to you is there anything that our, followers and customers can do to get involved with Eden that's going to help?
Yeah, and thank you so much for the wonderful question. I think first of all, they can your customers can always buy more tents and hammocks from Tentsile first and foremost, and that I think will make everyone very happy. And I think one thing that is so wonderful about the work that you're doing with Tentsile is that you're also helping people enjoy nature more, which I think is a really, really important part of the environmental movement, is appreciation of nature, because ultimately that's what Eden is all about. It's restoring nature. As far as how people can directly help us or work with us, a couple of things. First of all, you can always directly reach out to us and see if there are any open positions available, or if there are any internships available. Donations are always more than welcome, and ultimately donations are what allow us to do our work and at the scale that we're working at. Trees are currently 15 cents per tree, and that's US dollars. So it really doesn't take a lot to make a big impact. $1.50 will plant 10 trees in most of the nations that I listed earlier. As far as working directly on our sites, that's not something that we actually do, just because, and we're always grateful for this question because it just shows the commitment and the amount of the passion that people have for the work that we do. But we don't have volunteers at our sites planting trees, because ultimately it's all about employing the local community members, giving them work to do to break that poverty cycle. And so if we bring volunteers in, it kind of takes away the work from the people that we're helping. So the other thing, and this is always really helpful, is marketing or PR. And it can be something simple, talk about us on social media, share our story, let your friends know about Eden Reforestation Projects, because the more people who know about the work we're doing, the better.
There's a lot of deforestation that's happening in Europe and in North America, up in Canada, Vancouver Island. It's all old growth forest that's still being highly contested, trying to be saved by the locals, but trying to be bought up and commercialized by the big logging companies. There's an argument to say that you don't have to fly Americans over to Ethiopia when they could get a job planting trees locally, in the same way that you do in other parts of the world. Do you have local projects going on in North America, Canada, US?
So you don't have to go far to make an impact, specifically with tree planting. Eden does not currently work in developed nations like the US, Canada, Europe, European countries, or Australia as an example, only because our focus and our primary thesis is really working in areas of extreme poverty where people cut trees down for survival. That's just our focus. It doesn't mean that other organizations that do work in Canada are, not doing good work. I think volunteering in, for instance, we're in the UK, there's a lot of there's a lot of opportunities to volunteer to plant trees in the Midlands or Northern England. There are a lot of opportunities. And actually, I've seen some really cool videos of people who plant trees. Like they go and they have this massive backpack full of little tiny pine trees, and they can plant like hundreds of trees in a day. And it's this, they have a little shovel and they just go one after the next. What we're doing is also preventing further deforestation, because ultimately the deforestation is coming from the poverty. Whereas, you know, for instance, in the US and all the areas you mentioned, logging it's a business, it's a different approach to, or it's a different reason to cut trees down.
Is your general outlook on the future of our global environment, is it optimistic? Is it negative? What's your feeling? Are we about to turn a corner over the next 20 years? Are we going to be able to, you know, pull it back from the brink?
I'm an optimist, for better or for worse, personally. People who work in the environmental space or sustainability, you know, even the work you're doing, Alex, with Tentsile, I think you kind of have to be optimistic, because if you're not, there's just no point in continuing. The more we talk about it, and I think the more we see the issues and I think this is the key, start focusing on solutions rather than just talking about how bad it is, because there is a lot of doom and gloom in the world, especially in the media, about the environment. And I think it really overshadows the amazing work that is already being done. Eden has a huge goal of planting 50 billion trees by 2030. So we're in 2022, it's the beginning. And this is a massive goal. It'll require scaling at an exponential rate, which you know, means new countries, new partners, new partnerships. But we wouldn't set a goal like that unless we thought it were possible.
I'm with you.
That's awesome.
I'm also optimistic. And from what I've seen within, you know, our industry, the outdoor industry, you know, massive strides have been made just in the last 2 or 3 years in terms of, you know, how people are starting to use recycled plastic for their fabrics, and how they're starting to, you know, plant more trees, clean water, protect water streams, water sources. Think about the dyes they're putting into their fabrics, how they can become more plant-based. I think if we are all aware, keep ourselves educated, keep talking about the issues, and keep pushing the brands and the companies that we use to become more sustainable, more ecologically sound, I think we do have a chance. And thank you very much. And yeah. I really appreciate you talking with us today. And maybe we can, in 6 months' time or so, revisit. Keep this rolling, keep the conversation going.
I'd love that. Yeah, that would be awesome, especially because 2022 is going to be, I think, a big year for us. We have a lot of big plans, and there's a lot of new nations that we're hoping to get online. So it'd be great to keep you and the audience informed, and just to share what impact Tentsile is making with Eden Reforestation Projects. So thank you very much for having us on the show, Alex.
Thank you, Daniel. That's fantastic.